I always tell people, we are still here because we are involved in a local church. We are submitted to spiritual authority in a local church, and a lot of musicians just don't have that.
Something about, we see a lot of it's happening with singers, right, and performers. Is there something about singers and just being involved in that industry that inclines you or contributes to this deconstruction?
You mean like lead singer syndrome?
You maybe.
Is that what
LSD.
he's asking? I don't know. So I feel like when you're touring and you're gone Wednesday through Sunday,
Yeah.
you know, that's like the Christian touring world when you're, you know, on buses and stuff. When I was doing it before buses, we were just in 15-passenger vans. It was just, you know, months. We're just gone. And when I was in college, I was being regularly poured into weekly. Being discipled is what I would call it now. Back then, I didn't know that. I was being counseled by older guys in the faith, same struggles as me, musicians. You know, that's when I was thriving. When I was touring, I didn't have that anymore. And so I began wrestling with these questions on the road, and I'm sharing them within my band. But then we would get to the venue, the church, and people are so excited to see us, and they have built up in their minds who we are, and we don't want to let them down. It doesn't feel good to get there and be like, yeah, I'm just kind of questioning the whole thing today. Can I still play? Maybe just don't share the gospel tonight. They let us do that. So you kind of get split in half a little bit on that. So you're kind of like this person in the van who's wrestling with these things, really thinking heavily through this stuff and talking about it with your friends. And then you get to your venues and your churches, and you know, you would never say, I'm just going to pretend to have it all together. You're just trying to make it through the night. You want to put on a good show. They've paid for you to be there. You want to put on a good show. And I think that splits you in half, and you're kind of scared to open up to other people. There were times where I tried this out, and I still try this out. And being a worship leader, you know, in the lobby, people are asking me, how did it go today? And I really let them know, and they just kind of look at me like, and I'm like, maybe I should save that for my pastor, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you get there, and you want them to be pleased with you being there. And it just, I'm not sure how to articulate that further than that, but it's not a good feeling. And I think that's part of the reason that it happens. And one of the things that really helped me is having an older, wiser, very godly person that I could bring up these questions and the doubts to. You know, he's my lead pastor. I can still do that with him. I still have people surrounding me. I have a Celebrate Recovery sponsor. You know, I talked to him today. I'm nervous. And like just being able to be the real me in front of and say, hey, you know, can we look at this, you know, male headship thing that again in the Bible, can you take me through it again? Because like, I don't like it. Let's look at what the scripture says. Can we open it up together? Having a safe person who's also knowledgeable to help guide me has been the key. I didn't have that. I had 4 other guys on the same level as me, pulling us in all different kind of directions and ending up, you know, God knows where. So I would make a guess that's probably what's happening with singers and band members alike, is a lack of safe places, like with people that are godly guides, and just, you know, lack of community. You know, I was talking about this yesterday or a couple of days ago with John's guitar player, Seth. A lot of people move from their hometown to Franklin or Nashville to do the Christian music thing. And I've just been kind of thinking, you know, you lose your church community. You know, there's tons of churches in Nashville. It's hard to get plugged in, but you can find another church community. But one thing you also lose is just the people that knew you when you grew up. And I hadn't even thought about that until the other day. My closest friends that really, really knew who I was, they saw me make this profession of Christ, right? They saw me get baptized and walk this faith. You know, I left that. And a lot of people leave that, so they're just kind of wandering, and they can just be anybody. I think that's not a really good thing.
Yeah.
I'll add to that too. I think the way the Christian music industry is set up is a lot of people don't realize that almost all, I think all the labels are owned by bigger secular companies. And so they have bottom lines. They have to meet certain demands from their higher ups. And that's not to say there aren't really godly, wonderful people in the industry. There certainly are. But there's this whole way that it's sort of bent toward the success and the money and the, you have to sell. You have to sell in order to maintain. And so that becomes a driving force that you have to fight. If you have integrity, you have to fight against that. But I'm so glad you mentioned that thing, because I was thinking, as you were asking the question about myself, like I moved from Los Angeles to Nashville immediately, for the purpose of starting the group that I was in. And I remember I was very connected with a church in Los Angeles, and then I wasn't. And I would visit churches, but then you start touring, and I never really got connected with a local church by the time I started touring. There wasn't a pastor in Nashville who was aware of me, who would check in on me. That just didn't exist. And so I think in the industry, if you want accountability, you have to provide it for yourself, which isn't really how accountability works. There's really not a standard you're held to. It's really just what would affect the bottom line. I hate to sound so cynical about that, but as long as whatever you're doing doesn't affect the bottom line, they're not going to worry about it too much. And so I think that's why we've seen Christian music slip into progressivism, because that's probably going to sell to a broader market, those kinds of lyrics and that kind of stuff. But as Dave was mentioning, it's a very odd thing. The whole celebrity culture thing is very strange, especially in the Christian sense. You have what he was describing, and then you get back on your bus, and really your people are who you're on the bus with. And sometimes they're good influences, and sometimes they're not, and you're in this fishbowl together. And this is actually something that John and Corey do really, really well. And I think that's why you guys have had such thriving spiritual lives. Everyone in the band is a sold out for Jesus, just filled with the joy of the Lord. If you hang out with Skillet, you will know that about every single one of them. And that's largely due to the fact that John and Corey have discipled their people well, and they take all of that very seriously, but not everybody does.
Thank you very much. That's really nice. Also, just to kind of echo both of these guys said, a lot of Christian musicians do not have a church they even go to. And I always want to say that because there's always a lot of younger people that ask me about, what if I want to be in a band? What do you suggest, John? Whatever. I always tell people, we are still here because we are involved in a local church. We are submitted to spiritual authority in a local church. And a lot of musicians just don't have that. And that's sad. And I'm not blaming it. I'm not putting the blame on the church or anything like that. What I'm saying is a lot of people don't even have the vision of why they need to be a part of a local church, because they just haven't understood the scriptures. It's just that part of it's really sad to me. So I would add one more thing. I agree with all of this. I would add one more side to this, just to say, I've been wondering recently, because I've been really hard on CCM. I've been really hard on Christian musicians who leave the faith, because it really is an epidemic. And there's a lot more that are waiting in the wings for their time to do it. There's a sadness to this, that if you're a Christian musician and you say things that are extremely problematic to the faith, if you make great music, you will still have a career. They will not get rid of you. They will absolutely not get rid of you if you're making money. It's just the way it is. And I used to find that really depressing. I remember, I won't say band it is, because that would be kind of gossipy, even though I'm dying to, because I'm just that kind of guy. But we were playing with one of the biggest Christian artists of all time, and we played early in the day. This is about 13 years ago, before Skillet was anybody knew. We were playing earlier in the day, and of course I look the way I look, and we did our show, and I talked about my faith in Christ. And there were people really offended. How can you be a Christian and look that way? It was so loud, you were screaming. I was like, no, I'm not. And they didn't understand, whatever. Then one of the biggest bands in Christian music comes up, and I don't want to shock anybody, says on the microphone at a Christian show, how's everybody doing out there, all you beautiful, sexy little things? Nobody has a problem with it. Nobody stops buying their music. Nobody stops playing the music. And I remember thinking, this industry judges me because the way I look, but doesn't judge them for what comes out of them. Isn't that the opposite of what, that's the bowl that's clean on the outside, dirty on the inside, isn't it? That kind of thing makes me really kind of sick to my stomach, right? But I will say another thing that I'm also noticing right now is I think because in the pastor class, in the elite class, in the theologian class, they are so smart that even they know that they will lose their gigs if they come out and say it. So these people are so smart, they just dance, don't they? They just dance around. And if you go, hey, kind of sounds like you're saying that hell isn't real. They're like, no, we're not saying that. What we're saying is we're going to nuance, and maybe there's a, and I'm like, no, I know I'm not smart, but I don't think you're being honest with me. I think you're up there doing the dance, and you can never pinpoint them down. Even when they write books about it, saying this stuff that's wrong, the heretical nonsense they're saying, people go, that kind of sounds kind of weird, isn't it? And they're like, no, what it is empathy. And in the end, I'm like, you know what? I smell something smells like heresy to me.
That's so good. Well, no, it's so good. That's why he makes the big bucks. No, but he's right. He's dead right. And I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to say any names, but we have evangelical elites who are the think tanks for the evangelical church who are doing exactly what he's talking about. People say, deconstruction can be a good thing. It's not necessarily bad, but maybe it's good. And I think actually it's very good. And maybe it's not, but I think it is. And ultimately, I go all over this country doing conferences. Every person in the pews knows deconstruction is bad. Everybody knows that. But the thought leaders seem to be extremely confused and want to nuance it into oblivion today.